right, let's call the meeting to order. Before we begin, I want to remind the Public Safety, Finance, and Strategic Support Committee members and members of the public to follow our code of conduct at meetings. This including commenting on the specific agenda item only and addressing the full body. Public speakers will not engage in a conversation with the chair, council member, or staff. All members of the Public Safety, Finance, and Strategic Support Committee, staff, and the public are expected to refrain from abusive language. Repeated failure to comply with the Code of Conduct, which will disturb, disrupt, or impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, may result in removal from the meeting. This meeting of the Public Safety, Finance, and Strategic Support Committee will now come to order. Can the clerk office please take a roll call, please?
Councilmember Salas. Here. Casey. Here. Mulcahy.
Here.
Kamei.
Here.
And Duan. Thank you.
Any public comments?
No public comment.
Okay, we're going straight to consent calendar. On the bi-monthly financial report for March and April 2025. Can I have a motion?
Move we accept the consent calendar.
Second.
Thank you very much. Let's vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, well, before we go into the report, I want to say thank you so much to Councilmember Salas and his contribution to this PIS-FIS, to the city, and he is, this will be his last PIS-FIS meeting, and my heartfelt thank you to him that he's been very compassionate, kind, caring, and very supportive of our city. Thank you, Councilmember Salas.
Very kind of you, and I have many words to say, but I'm going to hold them till my last council meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. So we go to D, report to the committee. Number one, it will be advancing racial and social equity through cultural and practice annual report. And who do we have here? And we have a presentation from Andrea Aguilar, and Lydia Bustamante.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair, council members, staff, and my name is Andrea Aguilar. I'm the Racial Equity Manager here in the Office of Racial and Social Equity. I'm joined here by my lovely colleague, Lydia Bustamante. Yeah, you got a lovely. And Solma, our director, regrets that she is unable to be here, but we are excited to be here to present and answer any questions for you. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward with our presentation. So here on this slide, you'll see our vision and our mission, and really this year in our presentation for this report, for our annual report for the fiscal year 2024 and 2025, reflects a year of progress, learning, deep collaboration across departments and our community members. As always, we remain grounded in a clear vision, a San Jose where everyone belongs, thrives, and no disparities exist. And in today's presentation, we are presenting this report for 2024-2025 for your acceptance, and more importantly, for your reflection and support. The report covers our key accomplishments during this fiscal year across our three core portfolios: racial and social equity, inclusion and belonging, and disability affairs. This also covers some of the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. You'll not just see numbers, but stories of change, institutional progress that are helping our city become a more equitable, inclusive, and responsive San Jose. And so in this next slide, you'll see 4 strategic objectives that are part of this year's work plan, and you'll see here they're written on our screen. And first, we work to normalize equity as part of our city's everyday culture. That's our first strategic objective. Our second is that we build the infrastructure that makes this work possible through training, policy, and accountability. And third, we work to support inclusive practices that truly welcome and empower all residents. And finally, we focus on removing systemic barriers, particularly for immigrant communities, residents with disabilities, and others who've been historically excluded from full civic participation. And why do we do this? Because we know that when we design city programs and services for those that are most impacted by disparities, everyone benefits. So in this next slide, I'm excited to present our racial and social equity highlights. And in this first data point here, you'll see that 86% of our city employees see how inclusion and equity relate to their role. And this data point really signals how growing shared ownership is growing across the entire organization. And this kind of progress shows that we're not just teaching and training equity concepts, we're really embedding them to the day-to-day mindset of our workforce. In the previous Racial and Social Equity Action Plan, departments completed 160 racial and social equity actions. And in this new iteration for this year, with 55 already completed in this cycle and 184 are currently in progress. These racial and social equity action plans are published on our website, and we're really excited to announce that every department has designated a lead staff member who's responsible for managing these plans. And this really helps with better coordinating, supporting these teams. And in these sessions that we meet together, we really work to learn, analyze their collective work. And 100% of those that come to these sessions say that it's worth and valuable use of their time. And in accompaniment of these racial and social equity action plans, we're excited to announce that a dashboard is accompanying next to it. And so community members, in an effort to be transparent, are able to see the progress of these equity actions. So you're able to see what's in progress, what's not in progress right now, and then also what's been completed. So now I will be passing to my colleague, Lydia.
Good afternoon, or good morning. It's morning still. Good morning, council members, staff, and community members. I'm Lydia Bustamante, an assistant to the city manager, leading the inclusion and belonging portfolio in the ORCI team. You might recall from last month's presentation on the Welcoming San Jose plan that we emphasized that building belonging isn't the work of just one office. It's a shared commitment across departments, community partners, and residents alike. This idea of welcoming and belonging really belongs to our entire community, and that takes all of us. As a certified welcoming city, we've continued to lead in trust building and connection. The San Jose Civics Master's Class, which is a free multilingual program, helped over 350 residents. 84 of them were born outside of the United States. And we helped them learn how to engage with local government, many for the first time. We strengthened our Know Your Rights infrastructure, trained hundreds of city staff on safe site protocols, distributing over 5,000 multilingual Know Your Rights cards through city systems, and equipped almost 200 frontline staff with trauma-informed de-escalation tools. We also expanded legal access for immigrant residents, supporting over 1,000 people from 73 countries. Our partnership with 38 immigration attorneys, including 24 who served pro bono, created pathways for survivors seeking U visas and T visas. These joint legal and naturalization clinics show how San Jose treats immigrant rights not as a problem to fix, but as a shared community responsibility. Behind the scenes, we actively supported 17 California state bills on equity and inclusion, and co-developed the San Jose Welcome Plan and with 24 partner organizations and 15 city departments. All of these actions send a clear message to our immigrant neighbors: you belong here. This was a foundational year for our disability affairs work. We conducted 25 site visits of San Jose facilities, most of them owned by the city, with 130 staff to evaluate signage, look at language access issues, and look at their service design. We trained over 150 staff in ableism and disability awareness. Supported Vice Mayor Foley and Councilmember Kamei, of course, in hosting the 16th Annual Disability Awareness Day with our partners, bringing together over 500 attendees. And we're on track to being compliant with digital accessibility federal standards by April 2026. These are steps towards making accessibility an expectation not an exception. Finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about challenges. We recognize that this work is happening at a time of national pushback on equity initiatives. And locally, capacity across departments is frankly uneven. But we also know that San Jose has laid a strong foundation. Looking ahead, we intend to stay the course. We'll continue to standardize equity practices, implement the new equity ordinance and council policy, and expand departmental support. Our aim is for every city service and decision to reflect the values of equity and inclusion. In closing, we want to express our deep gratitude for the leadership of this committee, for our city colleagues, and most of all, for our community members. Every milestone we've shared today is the result of partnership. It's the result of listening, co-creating, and staying committed even when the work gets hard. Equity isn't just a program. It's not a buzzword. It's not a soundbite for us. Equity here at the City of San Jose is a practice, and it belongs to all of us. Together, we're building a San Jose where everyone, regardless of background or ability, has the opportunity to thrive. And we'll take any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have any public comments?
No public comment.
Well, then I will go straight to Councilmember Mulcahy.
Thank you both, and thanks for the whole group's efforts on the city's behalf. You're right, it has sort of, penetrated into every area of the city. I was in two different DOT meetings yesterday at staff level, sort of updating on, paving, and then one on traffic safety. And in the presentation is baked in equity. It's sort of spelled right up front. So obviously your hard work is paying off throughout the city. A couple of questions that I wanted to ask. So we just went through the budget and we increased commitment to immigration services. A lot of the nonprofits were here, encouraging that. Do you have is that pool of funds directed by then your office in relationship to the support to the community, whether it be for legal services and so forth? Or is that going outside the city but yet still marshaled by your department?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my understanding it was that the City Council directed the Office of Racial and Social Equity to develop a MBA with a recommendation of $250,000, which we initially did in coordination with other funders, including the county and some philanthropic partners as well, in order to make sure that we are leveraging each other's investments in local services and coordinating those efforts. The next step would be to go back to our kind of community of practice of local funders that are funding immigrant services and figure out, given this new direction, what would that look like? So yes, it would be directed by the Office of Racial and Social Equity, but again, we need a little bit of time to be able to figure out exactly what is going to be funded in the next fiscal year, which the county will determine by July 1st in order to make a recommendation. That said, we're happy to give some additional updates to the council offices over the course of the coming weeks.
That's great, and you beat me to it. I was going to ask, I'd love to sort of stay, passenger on learning more about how we're going to deploy those resources, and I love the fact that you're already talking about how to partner with others to, gain some overall effectiveness even greater than we can do on our own, so that's cool. You talk about site visits, and you talked about city facilities. Does that include community centers?
Thank you for your question, Council Member. Yes, it does include some of the community centers that our city facilities have.
Would you just make a note to check if Gardner Community Center has been on your route of visits? It's an unfortunately forgotten part of our city. It's been lobbied between District 3 and District 6. And we're working super hard to make sure that whatever resources we can bring, it's a closed community center for the most part. And any opportunity to engage with that community is super important. And, it's a disenfranchised community in many ways, and so we're trying to boost them as much as we can. So I'd appreciate knowing whether Gardner's on your radar, and Hardy has been visited by the department. So thanks for that. And then the last thing on ADA, I have sort of a mixed relationship with the way that ADA laws are used, and unfortunately, abused by lots of lawyers out there. So I'm curious, relative to the ADA work that we're doing, we have another program in OEDCA which supports CASP reports for business owners and property owners. Do you have any sort of engagement with that work that they're doing kind of over there, or is this completely separate work? And if you're not aware of what that is, a CASP report basically is, you have an expert come in and tell you all the infractions you have in your business or in your property. And what it does is it essentially gives those lawyers, if you haven't fixed the 25 recommendations and you've done 23, but you didn't do 2 because it was too expensive or problematic, it's actually evidence against you in a court of law relative to ADA if you haven't done it. So I have this real conflict between some of this work that we're doing in the city and how we're advising businesses and property owners. So I'm just curious, is there any visibility between programs you're doing about elevating, equity with our disabled community and that program over there?
Thanks for your question. As you know, our director, Sulma Maciel, is temporarily overseeing the Disability Affairs portfolio, given the current vacancy that we're currently hiring for. So let us do a little bit of research into that, and we'll do a follow-up with you after the meeting.
My colleague wants to talk. So I think that was the end of my questions, and I'll defer my time to Councilmember Kamei.
Yes, absolutely.
But thank you for all the work you're doing. Appreciate it.
Just through the chair, because I sit on CED, I also am aware of the collaboration that the Office of Racial and Social Equity does with our economic development, and we actually have grants to assist small business owners to be able to make conversions in their facilities, to be able to facilitate that. And I think it was last year, they had a session to be able to inform small business owners of the things that can be done, how we can facilitate it, and really just bridging the two departments to be able to get the word out.
I know we're not supposed to have a conversation, Chair, but I do need to say something more about that. And so, Councilmember Kamei, it's exactly the reason I'm raising this issue, and I've raised it with OEDCA and the folks that are working on those grant programs for CASP, which I just think it's a potentially slippery slope, and I've asked our city attorney to look into it because I think it's super. Look, I've got disabled family members, and I'm really, really inclined as a property owner and a business owner myself to make those accommodations. Where I am concerned is our small businesses are falling prey to frivolous lawsuits that are using the ADA as a weapon. And I just want to make sure that the support we're giving to our small business community is helping them and ultimately in the end not hurting them, because when you do a CASP report, it gives you all kinds of recommendations, many of which are economically often infeasible, and so or require a property owner to do it and the property owner won't cooperate. So it just sort of sets up evidence against you if you don't act on the report and the requirements or the infractions called out in the report. You are susceptible to ADA lawsuits, and we don't need to continue to go to it, but that's really the crux of what I'm trying to raise for the city, for our small business community, and for our grant programs that we're already in the midst of offering. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well,
Councilmember,
thank
if
you
don't
for the
mind,
robust information there.
I just wanted to add to your point. Councilmember, is that the design of the disability affairs work and to provide those site visits is really intended to provide technical assistance and training to the staff that are at these different sites, not necessarily to play a game of gotcha, right? So in that process, we're reviewing reports about the site as they already exist, but also working with them to identify other issues, including language access and other issues as well, right? And so if we can provide folks with some technical assistance, they can improve those things immediately and not feel like they're buried by the red tape, if you will.
Okay, well, thank you, Councilmember Mulcahy. We're going to go to Councilmember Salas.
I wasn't going to comment on that, but I need to. So exactly what Councilmember Mulcahy is saying has happened. I have a couple of little vendors that merchants that I'm the landlord of. Small Asian bagel shop, an Afghani pizza place. And the exact same thing Mulcahy said is just, it's rampant. And by the way, I heard they just ravaged Japantown. They go to the small merchants, and I won't go into too many details, but there's a 2% grade on this nice ramp that goes into the bagel shop. And they come out, and it was 3%. They measure it, and it's 3%, and then that's all they need. And my point is, I don't know that it would fall on you, but you should be aware that in a way, if I had grants, it would be to pay for some attorney fees, because once they come in, it doesn't matter what they've done, they will get you, and especially these small merchants. So anyway, just a comment. Maybe it doesn't bridge on you. But I have some other difficult questions for you. Number one, you talk about, in one of your slides, you said remove systemic barriers. Just want to ask you, when you talk about site visits, there is no question in my district, essentially downtown, but much more than downtown, the periphery of downtown. Let's take Japantown, or even my neighborhood. DOT, code compliance, does an amazing job there. They ticket people right away. On this side of town, Washington neighborhood, Spartan Keys, there are so many RVs. The parks are so bad. And I don't know, some of my other council members, maybe on the east side, would say the same thing, but there's a visual disparity in my district between how code compliance works and how our parks are maintained. And I think a lot of it is probably because the neighborhoods aren't as organized, but it is a visual and striking difference, particularly, if I will, on the homeless and the RVs. But PD does a great job. In fact, they would tell you probably the same thing, because they spend much more time over there. And some of it is because it's that broken window theory, where when you have a broken window and you don't fix it, then more people kind of pile into that area. But I just wanted to mention, is your scope include that, looking at the disparity between subsections of the city relative to how poor the parks look, how slowly they DOT and code compliance responds?
Thank you for your question, council members, and thank you for highlighting economic disparities that are across our city, and that really folks really experience the burden more in certain areas. And we work closely with our departments, our Department of Transportation, our Parks and Rec, and then as well as PBCE as part of our racial and social equity actions plans, as well as doing technical assistance and working with them to really understand root causes of those systemic barriers. And that, I think we all know as a society and as a city, these things also take a lot of time, a lot of investment, and also work to do. And so we've been in close collaboration and partnership with our departments to continue to look and iterate and improve upon those policies.
I so appreciate what you're doing, but I do want to make sure, you say you've been in close collaboration. I'll drive you to Washington, the Washington School area, and I'll drive you to the Spartan Keys area right now, and it's striking, the disparity. And then I'll drive you to Nagley Park or Japantown. It's striking. So keep your eyes open. That's all I'm asking. And I really appreciate what you're doing, and appreciate you listening to me. Secondly, I'm kind of summarizing something I read in your report, but it says the coming year presents meaningful opportunities to deepen impact, foster collaboration, and build a more inclusive city for all. I know you must be concerned about what's happening at the federal level relative to DEI. And to me, some of the biggest, it says opportunities, but you have some huge challenges coming up. Have you talked about what's coming up relative to the directives that we can't get any federal money, that we can't do so many things relative because we have DEI. Are you having those discussions internally?
Thank you. Yes, of course. We would be remiss if we weren't addressing those, what's going on at the federal level and what we anticipate to be coming soon. We're in close coordination with both the City Attorney's Office as well as the Intergovernment Relations team in order to be able to analyze policy. The intent at this point is to continue to implement the city's equity policy and ordinance and stay the course until we receive a different direction.
Thank you. I'll just close by saying, when I moved to San Jose in 1974 out of college, somebody came up to me, I was at some meeting, and he said, he knew I was new, and he said, the nice thing about San Jose is that all you have to do is work hard, and nobody cares who you are. And that was in '74. You guys continue to do a great job, and I'm really proud of this city for exactly that reason. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. We're going to go to Vice Chair Rosemary Kamei.
Thank you so much, Chair Duan. I really want to appreciate all of the work that you do and how, in the last few years, it has really moved forward throughout the organization. And I want to say congratulations. There's a lot more yet to be done, but certainly we're going in the right directions. And I would like to move acceptance of the annual report.
Second.
Well, thank you.
Sorry, I was supposed to do that.
Anyway, I do have a question for the Office of Racial Equity there and Social Equity. Now, I'm going to piggyback off the Councilmember Salas regarding the federal administration. How do you prepare for the onslaught of the funding going to be cut? And they definitely looking at DEI and just dismantle what we have now. Are you preparing for that?
So if I could answer, I think from a, Jennifer Shembry, Deputy City Manager, I think from a funding perspective, I don't know that that's really in your wheelhouse. I think that's more the City Manager's office, the Budget Office, so absolutely. And I think there was an MBA that was put out regarding federal funding. So Jim Shannon, Lee, Jennifer absolutely are monitoring and continuing to monitor that, and we'll keep you updated on any changes.
Well, thank you. I've always believed in preparing for the worst case scenario, right? So if we don't get the funding, how do we continue to support our community that are underserved, multicultural, and they're hurting, and it's that's keep me up at night a lot. Anyway, thank you so much for the excellent work, and keep up the good work. We're in it for a big long fight, but we'll come out okay, I believe. All right, let's vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And we'll go to item number 2 is our Police Department Operation and Performance Quarterly Status Report. We will have a presentation by our Deputy Chief Gina Tabaldi, our Captain Steve Donahue, our Lieutenant, I'm going to butcher this.
Nakwai Sherry.
Sherry, yes. And then our Lieutenant Paul Hamlin and our Crime Prevention Supervisor Sandra Garcia.
Okay, good morning. I am Deputy Chief Gina Tabaldi, the Executive Officer for the San Jose Police Department, and they've been introduced, but with me today is Captain Steve Donahue of the Support Services Division. We have Lieutenant Nakwai Sherry of Traffic Enforcement, Lieutenant Paul Hamlin of Research and Development, and Sandra Garcia, our Crime Prevention Supervisor. We are here today to present the department's Operations and Performance Quarterly Status Report. Okay, so I will begin by providing the latest citywide crime statistics. which will include, for the first time in over 2 years, a year-to-year comparison of the first 5 months of 2025 versus 2024. After that, Lieutenant Nakwai Sherry will provide a brief recap of last month's Cinco de Mayo activities, and then Captain Donahue and Sandra Garcia will provide a report on the department's latest community engagement efforts. With crime statistics, we will begin with crimes against persons. As you can see in our quarterly breakdown, the overall number of crimes against persons went down from quarter 1, 4218, to quarter 2, 3974, to quarter 3 with 3615. With the vast majority of these crime categories, we saw decreases from quarter to quarter. However, with murder, we saw a 25% increase from Q2 to Q3, which equated to 1 homicide more than in quarter 2. With kidnapping and abduction, we saw an increase in 9 events from Q2 to Q3. Next is a year-to-year comparison of crimes against persons for the first 5 months of 2025 versus 2024. Due to the switch to the National Incident-Based Reporting System, or NIBRS, in April of 2023, this is the first time in over 2 years we've been able to do a year-to-year crime comparison. As we do this comparison, we see improvements in almost every crime category. We see a large decrease in homicides, 5 fewer, than the same time last year. While we see a large decrease in human trafficking, rape, and sex offenses, I believe these numbers may level off a bit as the year progresses because these crimes often experience delays in reporting, and the 2024 data better takes into account these delays. The data gets updated regularly and is based upon date of occurrence, not date of reporting. Turning now to crimes against property, we see the overall number of offenses in quarter 3, which was 9161, was down from both quarter 2, 9614, and quarter 1, 9250. Robbery was down 11% in quarter 3 and down 13% in quarter 2 from quarter 1. Burglary was down 7.6% in quarter 3 from quarter 2. Arson and embezzlement both went up in quarter 3, but both were down in quarter 3 compared to Q1. Property crime in general is cyclical. So in other words, we tend to see the same quarterly trends every year, which is why the year-to-year comparison is so valuable. As we look at the year-to-year numbers for crimes against property for the first 5 months of 2025 versus 2024, we see that robbery had almost no change. With larceny and theft cases, we saw a 7% increase, or 417 additional cases, but this actually is no surprise to us at the department. Our organized retail theft team has been working with businesses to increase reporting of these types of crimes and is collaborating with the DA's office to prosecute them. Also, we did see vehicle thefts decrease 25%. This is 711 cases. In speaking with the various investigative units throughout the department, this could be attributed to multiple investigative units working crimes associated to a network of criminals stealing vehicles to commit their crimes. Finally, we turn to crimes against society. These numbers, well, they're kind of all over the place, but the takeaway from this is that the numbers are largely based on the proactivity of our officers. So when we see an increase in the number of narcotic cases, this is because our officers are being proactive and making arrests during pedestrian stops, vehicle stops, calls for service, etc. I think the year-to-year comparison actually provides a better outlook on what's happening with crimes against society. So if we look at the year-to-year comparison, we see that animal cruelty is down 46%, or 23 cases, in the first 5 months of 2025 compared to 2024. We're not quite sure what to attribute this to, but it is a win and we will take it. When we look at the narcotics cases and see an increase of 48%, that's 692 cases. This, as I mentioned, is the proactivity of our officers, and it's positive. With gambling, we see essentially no change, just one case. With pornography and obscene materials cases, we had a decrease of 41%, or 30 cases. And then with prostitution, we see the biggest decrease. It was 76%, or 65 fewer cases. So this can actually be directly attributed to the police department's limited resources. As the demand for dealing with unpermitted vendors went up, the department was asked to address it. And the team who focused on prostitution proactively was redirected temporarily. And so that's why you're seeing the decrease in proactivity with the prostitution. With weapons violations, we saw a 31% increase, or 102 more cases. And this, again, is attributed to the proactivity of our officers on ped stops, car stops, etc. So when our officers make a car stop and pull someone over and they have a gun in a car and make the arrest, that gives us a stat in this category. So it's a win if the numbers go up because our officers are proactive. So, having said that all, I'm going to now pass it over to Lieutenant Nakwai Sherry, who's going to report out on Cinco de Mayo weekend.
Good morning. The Cinco de Mayo operational period for us was between Friday, May 2nd and Monday, May 5th of this year. It was our intent to facilitate a safe environment for Cinco de Mayo weekend. Every effort was made to allow citizens residing or conducting businesses in or near the area affected by potential road closures, the ability to leave and return to the residence and or businesses without unreasonable delay. There were 3 sanctioned events that the city had over the weekend. The first one was on Saturday, May 3rd. There was a Cinco de Mayo car show. It was directly in front of the SAP Center, and that was scheduled between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Estimated attendance for that event was about 900 folks. Pre-planned street closures for this area was Santa Clara Street at Barack Obama Boulevard, and on West Santa Clara Street from Stockton Avenue to Highway 87. The other 2 events were on Sunday, the first one being the Cinco de Mayo celebration and parade. That was between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And the parade and festivities on Story and King Road and Amherst Park. Estimated attendance for that was about 10,000 folks. Pre-planned street closures on that was King Road between McKee and Highway 680, and then between 680 and Story Road all along King Road. The second event for Sunday was Second Chance to Life between 11 a.m. and 10 p.m., and that was located at the Plaza de Cesar Chavez Park. Estimated attendance 5,000 to 8,000 folks, and there were no pre-planned street closures for that particular event. If we look at our daily summary of police operations, on Friday, May 2nd, vehicular and pedestrian traffic in both the downtown and the foothill corridor was moderate throughout most of the evening. No traffic diversions or road closures were necessary, and there was very little sideshow activity throughout the night. Officers were released at approximately midnight hours. On Saturday, May 3rd, vehicular and pedestrian traffic in both the downtown corridor and the foothill corridor was moderate to heavy throughout most of the night. No traffic diversions or road closures were necessary. There was very little sideshow activity throughout the night, and officers cleared parking lots where large crowds were gathered, and a little bit of sideshow activity was occurring. Officers were released on that night at 1 o'clock in the morning. On Sunday, things picked up a little bit for us. Vehicular and pedestrian traffic was heavy in the early afternoon in the downtown and foothill corridors. There was extremely heavy pedestrian traffic in the Story and King Road area, primarily due to the Cinco de Mayo festivities. At 1600 hours when they laid out, several hundred people jumped into the Story and King Road intersection to watch the lowrider vehicles leave the area. Over the course of the next few hours, the vehicular and pedestrian traffic seriously increased in both the downtown and foothill corridors. 4 vehicle traffic diversions were activated in these 2 areas between the hours of 9:15 p.m. and 11:30 p.m., which is a relatively short period of time, only a couple hours. Officers cleared parking lots, broke up problematic crowds all evening. The parking lots surrounding Story and King Road, Monterey and Southside, Santa Clara and 7th Street, and Santa Clara and 19th Street were significantly problematic areas as there were multiple vehicle burnouts, sideshow activity, vehicular and pedestrian traffic congestion, drinking in public, firework, and altercations. Officers were released at this night at about 1 o'clock in the morning. On actual May 5th, which was on Monday, vehicular and pedestrian traffic in both the downtown and the foothill corridors was moderate until about 1945 hours, which is 7:45 p.m., when a large crowd began taking over lane number 2 of Santa Clara and 7th Street. At this time, vehicular and pedestrian traffic increased significantly in the downtown corridor and in the foothill corridor in the Cardenas parking lot at Story and King Road. At about 2100 hours and 9 o'clock p.m., traffic diversions was set up only at these two locations. Due to an increase in vehicle burnouts, large groups of people in the roadway consuming alcoholic beverages, people hanging out and moving vehicles, and extremely heavy traffic. Traffic diversions were lifted at about 2300 hours. Again, that's only in those two particular mentioned areas. Officers were released that evening at 11:30 p.m. Officers were very, very proactive throughout the weekend, which encompasses the success of the weekend. Felony arrests were made throughout the weekend was 35. Misdemeanor arrests and or citations was 39. Warrant arrests was 23. We issued about 283 citations. Vehicles impounded were 10. And most importantly, the amount of loaded handguns recovered throughout the weekend was 15. And most of these were recovered from suspected gang members. So I think that's an important note. Officers worked hard to ensure the citizens of San Jose enjoyed a peaceful Cinco de Mayo weekend. There were no reported major injury assaults or any major use of force incidents that occurred during the operational period. That completes my report for Cinco de Mayo weekend. Now I'll turn it over to Captain Donahue for his report on the department's community engagement efforts.
Good morning, council members and chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. We have with us Sandra Garcia from our crime prevention unit, who's going to be assisting in the presentation. So let's see. There we go. This report was commissioned to help us assess and enhance how we connect with the community, particularly in our non-enforcement settings. It's also a proactive response to national and local events that challenge public trust in policing in 2020. Those events prompted multiple independent reviews of our department. And from those reviews came 31 separate recommendations suggesting that we need to work on our community engagement. Now, to move those forward, we partnered with PlaceWorks to lead a comprehensive and community-driven analysis. Their process included interviews with San Jose leadership, a national best practices review, a statistically valid community survey, community meetings, and multilingual focus groups, and one-on-one interviews with stakeholders. The survey was a highlight of the project, particularly because it was statistically significant. Now, this means we can rely on the results as a picture of how the community as a whole feels about us, rather than generalizing based on certain loud voices or select groups. The survey was conducted in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese with over 1,200 San Jose residents. Now, the results tell us that 75% of residents feel safe when a police officer is around, over 60% trust us to protect and serve them, and more than half feel that we treat people fairly. We recognize there are still areas for improvement, and we're working every day to increase our visibility in and collaboration with our communities. This report includes 29 actionable recommendations, which fall into 8 focus areas, which I'll go over now. The strategic plan revisions will be implemented soon, as they cost nothing and can be completed within our current workloads. Officer expectations and support include continuing our strong culture of community engagement, but also dive into increasing staffing and training. Enhanced community engagement is directed at specific outreach and engagement opportunities like the Community Advisory Board and our community policing officers. Community cooperation reflects our relationship with community-based organizations and our transparency in reporting. Internal coordination speaks to how we communicate with the department and our engagement activities and projects in and outside the department. Web and social media improvements are, well, just that. They're our public-facing community engagement online. And events and programs gives recommendations on revitalizing some past engagement opportunities and developing new ones. Ongoing tracking and evaluation recommends that we track and evaluate our success over time, and we're working on ways to do that into the future. Now, these recommendations give us a great path forward, and we're treating them as a call to action, not just a checklist that we'll work on someday. Now, of course, many of these recommendations have cost implications. In total, it estimates 47.6 million in ongoing costs and 73.4 million in one-time startup costs, primarily tied to hiring officers if we were to implement everything recommended in the review. Now, without those staffing related items, the remaining recommendations would cost about 5.1 million annually and 654,000 in one-time startup costs. Any item with a budget impact will be reviewed through the formal budget process with careful consideration of both department and city priorities. Now, importantly, we are not waiting to begin this work. In fact, we already have. We've redeveloped the Chiefs Community Advisory Board to ensure broad representation and consistent collaboration. We're in the final stages of launching the Community Partnership Academy, which will give residents firsthand insight into our department and its operations to build trust through transparency and education. And we've stood up a new community engagement team by reassigning 2 experienced crime prevention specialists to a department-wide role focused entirely on strengthening and coordinating community engagement. This is just the start. So moving forward, we will prioritize the recommendations based on their impact, budget, staffing, and workload. We will do those we can absorb now, continue what we are already doing, and move through the budget process for others. Of course, we will continue to hire more officers because, as you know, more officers means more opportunities for community engagement. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you so much for the report. I want to say how much our community appreciate our police department. There are some negative out there, but majority of it, at least I encounter, is very positive. Our police department have done an incredible job with the amount of resource that we have. And we as council members will continue to support our police department because I don't think any other metropolitans out there that had 120% homicide saw right in this major metropolitan. And I just want to congratulate you on that. And sorry I missed the public comments. Do we have any public comments? No?
No public comment.
Perfect. Does any of our colleagues would like to chime in? All right, we got a few. So we're going to go to Councilmember Mulcahy.
Thanks for the report and for all the work that you're doing out in the community. As a new council member, we've taken advantage of some of the partnership to, coordinate the crime prevention, for example, meetings with some of our neighborhood leaders and neighborhood associations, and they've been really effective. There's a couple of things, I think, Captain Donahue, that that I was feeding back through the chief of ways to maybe modify some of the communications that come through, namely the idea that I think the community understands that we don't have the desired number of police officers that we all hope to achieve. I think that the messaging around why and how important recruitment is can be really helped as we're out there talking to people on the ground. And at the same time, not necessarily focusing so much on our lack of officers because your data shows what a safe community we are. So I think it's, just a modification in the messaging would be super helpful because I think maybe the way it's being communicated leads to perhaps this notion that we aren't a safe city, and I think we all want to be the safest big city in America again. And Gene, I appreciate, kind of the pointing out of, as you're looking at the data, sometimes when you see a number rise, you get worried, but, I've got to twist my brain a little bit to how you look at it, which is, more arrests in one area, certainly leads to that. We don't have enough officers in different key places, but when a number goes up somewhere else, it's actually because we're being really intentional about going after it. So thank you for making that distinction, and just want to recognize you for all the work, and I'll move to accept this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mulcahy. We're going to Vice Chair Kamei.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the report. I know that we only have the 2 years that we've been using the new system, but I think that it's good information. I too, similar to Councilmember Mulcahy, am sort of like looking at the recruitment and retention, because obviously, we don't want to move people around in different areas, that just because we are not able to be fully staffed, it becomes an issue. But I will say that we're getting better. And I attended the last graduation, and it was really nice to see more, and hopefully the new academies are growing. And I know that, the chief and others are doing a lot more to try to be more inclusive and try to encourage. And so I'm delighted that we're going in the right direction. So thank you so much for your work, and thank you for all you do for the community.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kamei. We're going to Councilmember Salas.
Yeah, the reason I care so much about San Jose is I have, and especially PD, is I have never, and I work a lot on the ground level with some of your ground level officers. I have never encountered one of them who isn't warm, professional, and helpful. Not a single one. It just makes me so proud to be in San Jose. And I was here when you had 1,400 officers, and a lot of them, there are other staff that I work with occasionally who fall back on, well, we're understaffed. I have never heard any of your people say to me at the working level, I'm understaffed. They are really, really great. And I'm just proud to be part of San Jose because of PD, and I wanted to thank you for that. And this report, of course, but really. And getting the bad guys. I also tell my constituents when they, oh, you didn't come out in a minute when we called 911. You're getting the bad guys, and we really appreciate that too. The point that Duan made about, Councilmember Duan made about solving all the murders, I mean, we're getting the real bad guys, and I don't know how you do that and have the attitudes you do working with the community. So again, I just want to thank you all.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. I do have a few questions for all of you. Well, I know that we're going to have a large attrition rate, and our recruitment is we're fighting against many other departments and county and states for the same pool of officer. What can we as council member support you in make it more attractive or more desirable to get more people coming towards San Jose Police Department?
Thank you. Well, I do want to start off with one positive fact, and in June, Academy Class 53 is going to have 43 recruits. So we are seeing those numbers grow, and we have 66 in backgrounds for the October Academy as of right now. So things are looking up. We are working hard. We're getting word of mouth out there, and with everyone in this community, every member of our city workforce, put word out there for us. It is a great department with a ton of opportunity, and we're hiring, and we'd love to have people apply. So it's word of mouth helping us get out there, inviting us to those community meetings where we can spread word of mouth, and it's us really engaging our community.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. And I just want to say this, you might end up with one of my staff. I'm very supportive of him, but I hate to lose him too as well, because everywhere I go, everybody think, oh, that's my security detail. He's a Marines veteran, so he stands out, and it'll be a great addition to your department and to our city. So, but I want to give a big shout out to Captain Ken Tran. He's amazing. When I call, I mean, all of our council member here is like, when I call, we share our borders. And he is active, proactive, and he gets people out there and making our community feel safe. And I appreciate that. I have a question for Captain Donahue. Has our neighborhood watch increase or decrease over time? Do you know?
Actually, she does.
Oh, well, there we go.
Well, due to actually burglaries being down, the neighborhood watch tends to stay stagnant throughout the years. But usually in the summer, that's when we get more requests for neighborhood watch. Is usually in the summer.
Yeah, that's one of my goal is to create more neighborhood watch in District 7. People out there become our eyes and ears that tell us about stuff that we don't have the opportunity to see. And I think it's important that we'll continue to do so. And one of the things is, I noticed on slide number 14, our residents really strongly agree with foot patrol and bicycle patrol because it gives the officer out there an opportunity to be engaged with our community. And they actually see the officer not just, stopping the bad guys, but actually educate and talk to our neighborhoods and our residents, our businesses, and show that they care. Do we have any plan on having more foot patrol increase, if you will?
Well, the goal is to always have our officers in their free time when they're not responding to calls for service to get out on foot, to take out a bike, to engage with our community. That's always our number one goal. And I think as our officers increase and the workload is dispersed a little bit more so, then they will have time to engage in more of those activities. But I think if you look at like our narcotics numbers, our gun numbers, they are getting out. They are making those stops and those contacts. And then of course, if there is overtime money available, we're utilizing it for walking beats, for hotspot policing, for really focusing on the areas that need it the most when they need it. And that involves a lot of engagement and working with the community to solve crimes.
Thank you so much. The only last question I have is in my district, right there off of Tully and King, and right in that geographical area, I would say there are probably anywhere between 5 to 7 massage, coffee shop / sex trafficking and human trafficking and prostitution. And I get a lot of concern from our other business around there that they want to report it anonymously, but they are also very fearful for their lives and their businesses. And so right behind the Coffee Lovers, I know there's a couple of places down there, and I hope that we can get our undercovers and work on reducing that amount, especially on Tully Road. It's just, I hear it from not only the residents, the businesses, sometimes visitors, and it's become very concerning. And I have worked with our DA and talked about this, but I would hope that you hear my concern and our resident concern, our businesses, and we need to do some type of prevention, if you will, and because it's come with prostitution, come with JUN, come with the drug, the crime, and there's a huge problem with gambling. And as we know, the gambling industry in California based on the Asian community, and there's a lot of these shops that does illegal gambling as well. And I know that go through code enforcement, but I would hope that we can catch all three in one shot and decrease that amount.
We'll definitely pass your concerns on to your captain, and your captain can work with our vice unit, with our special operations, et cetera, to target the area and really focus on that criminal activity.
Thank you so much, and continue with the incredible work. We're here to support you and support our communities. So let's vote. Oh, sorry, we got a quick question from Councilmember Salas. I'm sorry, I was.
Hey, two questions. One, would like to help you with recruitment. What rolls off my tongue relative to what's the minimum requirement? Do you need a 2-year degree? Can you have a high school degree? Do you know what the minimum requirement? Because people always, I say, oh, they're hiring, but then I don't know what the minimum is.
Off the top of my head, I think it's 64 units that we require.
64 college units.
64 units.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then go ahead.
Just wanted to add, I think you can substitute that for military service, is that correct?
Correct.
Oh.
You can also have a military service and then like an AA degree, any degree, but 64
Great,
credits.
thank you. And then I just got a text. And he said, and they don't know I was in this meeting, but so it's a coincidence, but there's the No Kings March is this weekend. It's going to be a demonstration. He's asking if he should put his plywood up on his office, on his commercial office on Santa Clara Street because of, with some of the vandalism that occurs in these marches. Are you guys planning for that this weekend, and should he put his plywood up?
As far as this weekend, because I'm not in operations, I don't know everything going on this weekend. We do regularly have protests and marches throughout San Jose, and for the most part, they've been largely peaceful.
Yeah, it's been good.
If it is occurring, I imagine we'll have units out there monitoring to some extent. And the plywood, that's really a personal option.
Yeah.
San Jose PD will do their best to prevent criminal activity, and if we see anything that is occurring, vandalism, acts of violence, we will take action and do what we need to do to keep the businesses and the community members safe.
Great. I had forgot about it. My wife told me it's forming in St. James Park, and apparently it's going to be large, but I'll check with the captain. Thanks.
I just wanted clarification. Is that semester units or is it quarters units?
Steve just pulled it up, so we'll let him read it.
So the minimum qualifications, it's on our sjpdu.com page. Little plug there if you're looking for so the minimum qualifications, you have to be at least 20 and a half years old at the time of application, no older than 70. You have to possess a valid driver's license. You have to have a high school diploma, college credits of 60 quarter college credits or 40 semester. You don't need to have an AA, but you need to have that many credits. However, we do have honorable discharge can substitute 4 years of active duty in the military for the minimum college credit requirement. All right, and reserve time for that is excluded.
Well, thank you for that clarification. If I get through my second term, I might get a chance to join the San Jose PD.
We'll take you.
We're accepting all former firefighters.
Oh, thank you. Let's vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, we have open forum. Do we have any public speakers?
No public comment.
All right, meeting adjourned.